Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tuyết Ngọc Linh from Vietnamese Women for Human Rights. If you hear all of the violations against people in Vietnam, women and children are the most vulnerable people in our country. In the last recent years, the Vietnamese government continued its restrictions and violations of universally recognized human rights and inconsistent with its treaty's obligation, especially for the rights of children, women, and women's human rights defenders. There are little or no signs of improvement. When women attempt to exercise their rights for free associations, assemblies, religions or belief, expressions, and attempt to do all the things that they deserve, they always be expressed through and punished through legal instruments in Vietnam Penal Code or through actions outside of the system. And with a lot of violent attacks, arbitrary arrest, lack of fair trial, smear campaign, travel ban, and detention, restrict women's of human rights defenders with little or no chance of inquiry, investigation, recourse, or justice. In January 16, 2019, in its report titled, Out of the Shadow, Shining Lights on the Response to Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation, the Economist Intelligence Unit studied 40 countries and ranked them on how their government responds to the threat of sexual violence against children. Vietnam is ranking 37 out of the 40 countries studied. Vietnam scored only 38 out of 100 in terms of government commitment and capacity to fight sexual abuse against children, and only 17 over 100 in terms of engagement of industry, civil society, and media. A stalled investigation into a repeat sexual abuse of 5 young girls in 2005 by a 63-year-old cleric from Cao Đài, Tây Ninh sect, a sect established by the Vietnamese Communist Party in 1997 to eventually display the original Cao Đài religions established in 1926, illustrate how Vietnam justice system have failed the victims. All 5 victims, aged from 9 to 12 years old at that time, were students at Sở Đồng Nhi, a school for orphan girls and those from poor families. As of today, the perpetrator continued to live in Tây Ninh as a free man. Our organization is made up by many members of persecuted communities, groups such as Catholic, Baptist, Cao Đài, Hòa Hảo, and Buddhist. Our members and their families are victims of religious persecution in Vietnam. Many ethnic women and children and their families in the Hmong and Montagnard Christian community are suffering stateless condition, as you hear from Pastor Van, for refusing to renounce their faith. The authorities deny to issue citizenship IDs, birth certificates, marriage certificates to their families members, blocking their children for access to education and other benefit programs. There is also, like Father Tang just mentioned, there are an increasing use of Vietnamese government non-state actors like the Red Flag Association. In 2017, the Red Flag Association members, under the direction of the chairman of the People Committee and the police chief of Hung Tay Commute, violently attacked 20 women of Kẻ Gai Parish victims without provocation. The victim formally filed a complaint, but it's going nowhere because the government threatening to prosecute them. In order to silence them, because they don't want that. They don't want the victim to continue and want them to abandon their pursuit of justice. Another member of the Cao Dai religion, Mrs. Nguyễn Thị Hạnh, she was violently attacked by one of the members of the Cao Dai Tenin sect that's formed by the Vietnamese communists, Mr. Nguyễn Văn Hai. And then with the violently attacks, she fell down unconsciously and had to go to the hospital for treatment. She filed a lawsuit, just want to get the medical treatment payment back. It's roughly about $200 US. But again, the government will establish many roadblocks in her pursuit of justice, just because she refused to abandon her Cao Dai original religion that established in 1926 and refused to follow the new Cao Dai established by the government. While you hear about a lot of prisoners of conscience, and a lot of them, like Ms. Uyên just showed, 248 of them, about 1/3 of them are the women. But what about the wives of the prisoners of conscience as male, the children of those human rights defenders who serve their life in prisons right now? The Vietnamese government have the practice of detaining political and religious prisoners far away from their home, as mentioned earlier by Ms. Michelle Nguyen. And they also moving the prisoner from one prison to another one without notifying the family. Sometimes it takes them from days to travel from their home to visit their relative. Only know about the conditions of their family member have been transferred to another prison only after they come to visit their relative. Also, when it's very dangerous in Vietnam right now to travel from place to place with a lot of traffic accidents, and with women travel alone to visit their relative or their husbands or their father, it takes a lot of money for the travel expense, time-consuming, and very dangerous trip to visit prisoner. Mrs. Nguyễn Thị Lan, wife of two-time religious prisoner Protestant pastor Nguyễn Trung Tôn, who were arrested in 2017 and sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2018. Ms. Lan is constantly harassed by the local authority and the police. Another example is one of the persons is very dear to our heart, our old member, Mrs. Trần Thị Nga. I personally teach her English, have heard the voice of her two young sons running in the background. She's one of the co-founders of our group, Vietnamese Women for Human Rights. Just because she covers many issues, includes police brutality, human trafficking, which is she also a member, she also a victim of human trafficking, unlawful land grabbing, labor abuses. She was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment, plus additional 5 years of house arrest after she was convicted under Article 88 of the 1999 Penal Code for spreading anti-state propaganda, only because she posted the video that she made and the article she wrote on the websites or online on social media. Trần Thị Nga was transferred by the authority to the Gia Trung prison in Gia Lai province, a distance about 1,000 kilometers from her home in Hà Nam. She was denied the right to receive visitation for her family's members, especially her two sons traveled almost 2 days from her hometown to visit her in her at the prison that she stayed, just because she denied to admit that she commit any crime, and they denied her to see her two young sons. After a lot of advocacy that we have made, they finally let her to see her sons, and after almost more than a year, she finally hugged her two sons and hold them in her arms for only 5 to 10 minutes. Another way that the government harass and punishment common used for women human rights defenders is restriction their free movement, including the restriction within Vietnam and also blocking them international travel. The authority banned many human rights defenders, includes many of our members, Phạm Thanh Nghiên, Huỳnh Thục Vi, Nguyễn Xuân Mai, from traveling abroad. Huỳnh Thục Vi's passport were confiscated in 2015. And most recently, only 5 days ago, March 7, 2019, Ms. Bùi Kim Phượng was detained for question for more than 2 hours by the airport security and banned from travel to Europe to advocate for her husband, lawyer Nguyễn Bắc Chuyển, which is the picture that you see it here. He is the lawyer, a human rights advocate, 2-time prisoner of conscience. And in all cases, the police side evades security reasons for the ban. Since 2016, Vietnamese Women for Human Rights Emergency Assistance Program have successfully applied and secured about $60,000 in emergency assistance for human rights defenders, former and current prisoners of conscience, for their family, for medical treatment, for legal assistance, prison visits, and emergency expenses from several international human rights organizations. We also provide trainings and assistance to women from various communities, including the Hmong, the Montagnard, the Catholic communities, the Cao Dai communities, the Hòa Hảo, and the Buddhists as well, in order to help them to develop their capacity to carry out the program for and by themselves in their own communities. We provide laptops and smartphones for key members to support themselves while they conduct their work with their community's members. Vietnamese ethnic children, women human rights defenders, family members of prisoners of conscience, including mothers, wives, and children suffering and struggle are often not known by even domestic or international human rights community. As the mother of 4, and also as a woman, I really enjoy my freedom here in the US, and it's very easy to walk away from the daily busy, hectic, to be a professional woman, a mother of 4 running the children from place to place. I can spend all my time just taking care of my family. But that's not what the life I want to live. There are lots of women in Vietnam and children in Vietnam deserve to have a life to live with full freedom and dignity. So Vietnamese Women for Human Rights welcome the partnership and collaboration from all the CSO, all the NGO, and international human rights community to raise the awareness for issue of women's rights and human rights violation, especially against children and women. By working together, we can advocate, promote, and protect freedom and dignity for all women and children in Vietnam. Thank you.